Welcome to Piano Inspires podcast, celebrating pianists, teachers, and innovators as they share their inspiring stories about the transformative power of music.
Are you passionate about piano and keyboard education? Then mark your calendars for an event that's set to elevate your teaching skills to new heights. The National Conference for Keyboard Pedagogy is back, and it's bigger and better than ever. Join us for our online conference on June 7 and 8, 2025, and our in-person conference, July 23 to 26, 2025, in Lombard, Illinois, for an unforgettable gathering of educators, performers, and industry experts. Whether you're a seasoned professional or just starting out, this conference offers something for everyone. Dive into workshops led by renowned instructors, discover cutting-edge teaching techniques, and connect with like-minded individuals who share your love for music education. Don't miss out on this incredible opportunity to learn, grow, and be inspired. For more information, visit nckp2025.com today.
I'm Sara Ernst, and I'm so pleased to be joined here today with Penelope Roskell. I'm Director of Teacher Engagement for the Francis Clark Center, and I'd like to introduce Penelope a bit. So she is renowned as an outstanding performer of international caliber. She's an inspirational teacher, writer, and presenter. Her award-winning book, The Complete Pianist, From Healthy Technique to Natural Artistry, was described as an encyclopedic masterpiece of pianistic wisdom by the Piano Magazine USA. She is professor of piano and piano pedagogy at Trinity Laban Conservatoire of Music and Dance in London. She is chair of the European Piano Teachers Association UK, and she gives presentations at institutions and conferences worldwide. It's a pleasure to have you here, Penelope.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here and to see you again, Sarah.
Likewise.
Lovely to be here.
Yes. Okay, so take us back to the beginning. So what were some of your early experiences in your piano lessons?
I lived in a small town in the south of England. And often in small towns, you don't find good, particularly experienced piano teachers. And I was incredibly lucky. I had an elderly teacher who had been a pupil of Tobias Mate.
Oh, wow. Aren't you lucky?
I was really lucky.
And what was that teacher's name?
Her name was Elsie Monckton. She's not well known as a teacher at all. But it was such an inspirational start. I was so fortunate with that. And I stayed with her until I was 11. And then at that point, I moved to the north of England, near Manchester. And in England, we have each music college or conservatoire has a junior department, which takes place on a Saturday. So I was part of the Saturday junior department. So again, I was very, very lucky because I had a teacher who was very, very thorough. And she really was a pedagogue. And taught me, technique, musicianship, a very rounded approach to playing the piano. And also on those music schools, we have general music lessons, musicianship, history, chamber music.
Oh, that's lovely.
So at that stage, I was really very, very, very lucky.
If you remember back to that time, what particular things kind of really excited you about playing piano?
Well, one extraordinary thing was this teacher always did a big recital every year, and every single one of her pupils played. And I'd only been playing for 6 weeks, and I played in this big recital in this big hall.
Yeah, that's lovely. I love that.
A very simple piece, and I just loved doing it. And I think that just gave me so much confidence for the future in my performing career that I'd started so early on something so simple. And yet I loved the experience of going on stage and playing for people. So that was a really memorable experience.
Yeah, no, that is. And did you find that continued through your childhood, that you really look forward to performance?
I did. I loved performing. It was really important to me, and it was very easy and very natural for many, many years. Then I had a bit of a blip. When I went to college. And of course, everything becomes so much more serious and so much more competitive and demanding, high stakes. And I suddenly went out on stage one day and thought, don't know what I'm doing here. I doesn't feel the right place to be at the moment. I've got to really work hard at this. And that was a big shock. And I think that happens to quite a lot of pianists sometime.
Yeah.
From being a very intuitive player and very natural, they suddenly have to become somebody who thinks everything through in a different sort of way. So that was quite a transformative experience. And it's also affected my teaching because I'm very, very aware of how vulnerable a sensitive musician is and how we really have to nurture them very, very carefully, not to push them too soon. Make sure we give them the right repertoire so that we're really building up their resilience and their confidence. Because, our pupils are in our care. And
there's a fragility there.
There is a fragility, and we have to respect that and really, really nurture their strengths. And really develop them as strong, independent musicians.
Is there anything that you point to now when looking back at that time that kind of, I don't know, flipped the switch again for you? Or what did you find that then made you able to return to the stage with that sense of ease and confidence?
It was a sort of lengthy process. I mean, I don't really want to go into that, but it was just actually going out and doing it more and more. But I did have the really useful experience of I became sort of representative pianist of the British Council. So the British Council is not the same as the British Embassy. It's more of a cultural exchange organisation, and they have branches throughout the world. And so when I was in my 20s, I was traveling around the world playing for these different countries.
What an honor!
And sometimes it was a great big venue, and sometimes it was somewhere where people really had not heard Western classical music ever before. So that was an incredibly valuable experience. And it's something I would wish upon any young musician, is to get experience of playing to people who aren't judging you all the time, who are there because they want to hear the music and you want to share the music with them and you want to delve into it deeply and to help them really benefit from this performance. And that actually was a very, very transformative experience for me doing all of that.
I can imagine.
And having to play every day on a different piano in a different setting. Some of the pianos really weren't good. So you really just had to bring the music across and not be too fussy about, that note doesn't sound too good or whatever. So that was really valuable experience. So I always encourage all my students, even if it's just playing to your neighbours or find your own audience who are appreciative and are really going to support you. And not always being judged and marked.
Right.
And competing against others, which ultimately isn't very nourishing.
It's kind of returning back to that sense of just sharing music, right? And that's
absolutely
a challenge of the academic environment, right?
It is, I think so. And I think that's something we keep having to have at the back of our mind and be thinking all the time, what are we doing for our students? How are we best serving them?
Wow, that sounds like an amazing experience. It really does.
Yeah, that's great.
So take us a little bit forward in your training.
Right, so there are two bad things that happen in my training.
Do share.
So, and I think these are two things we really need to be aware of when we're teaching at that level. At age about 2021, I was practicing Liszt's Second Piano Concerto, and I had a performance coming up quite soon. I was practicing octaves for hours each day. My hand isn't particularly big. And guess what?
Oh, no.
Hurt my hand.
Yes.
And I told people, and they said, that's normal. It's normal to hurt. Just carry on. So I carried on and, of course, made it worse.
Oh, my.
So again, that was a life-changing sort of time. So my college experiences weren't entirely positive. And I think that we have to recognize that this is often the case. It's a difficult time for people. But it was. I always, the expression, there's a silver lining to every cloud.
Yes.
And at that time, this was, so many years ago, there were not pianists who understood this and were able to help me. So I had to work it all out for myself. So I just tried things out. I went for help I studied yoga with a private teacher. I studied Alexander technique. I just explored everything.
Mm-hmm.
And it forced me to completely rethink everything I'd ever been taught before then.
Mm.
And to reassess everything
Mm-hmm.
and start from scratch, really. And so that's what led me in a completely different
Mm-hmm.
direction
Mm-hmm.
in that sense, because I found that as I found out things that worked for me as a pianist and that helped me, my thumb not to hurt, every time I'd found that something seemed to work well physically, I immediately heard the benefit in the sound and the musical expression. It just freed me up musically as well. And so then I was teaching already. I started teaching very early on. I was very keen on teaching. And so I immediately had made a discovery. I'd share it with my students.
Mm-hmm.
And if it didn't seem to work, well, I'd drop it. But if it worked for, several of them, I think there's something in this. How can I reword this? How can I make it simpler? How can I make it work for everybody? So that's been a large part of my work ever since then. Mm-hmm. And in a way, I wouldn't have reached the stage where I am, where I'm writing books on it, if I hadn't had that negative experience. So we learn from our mistakes. And fortunately now, I think most students are very, very much more aware of how to look after their hands, how to practice sensibly and take frequent breaks, not overdoing it and so on. But things have changed in the last 40 years, but we still got a long way to go.
Indeed. Well, and I mean, your encyclopedic volume, I mean, is really that. I mean, you really touch upon so many different things in that volume with such detail.
Well, I think every pianist or everybody, when you reach a certain age, it suddenly hits you, wow, I have so much experience, so much knowledge, and I need to pass that on because I don't want it to go to the grave with me. So that book actually didn't start at that size. It really didn't. It started off as some small articles I wrote. I'd be teaching somebody, and giving some lessons, and then an idea would come up, and we'd explore it, and we'd try something out. And then I think, that would be useful for other people to know about. So sort of suddenly in the middle of the night, I think, I'll write an article about that. So I'd scribble something down and put it out in one of the magazines in the UK. And after a bit, I realised I got quite a lot of material there and realised it was going to turn into a book. But it was going to be a modest-sized book. And then I, by chance, was introduced to Peter's edition, who said, we've been looking for this book for 10 years.
Oh, fascinating.
So that was just sheer luck.
Yeah.
And I wish anybody listening to this as much luck in their lives as possible, because we can't plan everything. Sometimes things just happen. And they said they wanted it to be more comprehensive. They wanted to call it The Complete Pianist.
That's quite the title.
Quite a title, which then that put the emphasis on, I've got to cover nearly everything.
Yeah.
There's some things I haven't covered because I don't know anything about them. So it got bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
Yes. But the absolutely crucial thing for me was that it had to have videos in it. Because I don't know about you, but I've read loads of books by wonderful pianists in the past. And you get to a paragraph and you think, that sounds fantastic.
Yeah, but what do they mean?
That's revelatory, but I don't know what he means. Does he mean this movement or that movement?
Yeah.
And here we are. We music it's movement and sound. That's what it is. And if we can't hear the sound and if we can't see the movement, it's very difficult to understand the language, the written language. So that was an important part for me. I like working with video. And
it's an amazing part of today's world.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
With how there is a relative ease around creating that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's the way forward, very much so. And I think it's the way the younger people like to absorb material. I mean, people do read my book, but I don't expect them to read it from page to page right the way through in a month. It's there for them to use over several years as they're studying and want to extra help.
And it helps problem solving, right?
Yeah,
if you've got a problem, you can find a solution.
Yeah, that's the hope, yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you've also written some materials really more geared towards children. Because, of course, the Complete Pianist is more geared towards a mature audience that has already understood a lot of playing, has a context for piano playing. But you've also worked on the Essential Piano Technique, which I understand is 3 volumes and growing, right?
Yes.
Which is really geared towards children.
Yeah, that's right.
Right.
So the Complete Pianist was really based on my work of college students and young professionals. So it was really trying to cover everything that an advanced pianist or late intermediate to advanced pianist through to professional, everything that they really would need to learn. So it's not something that has to be studied in a year. They can dip in and out. They can come back to things that they need later on and so on. And when I'd written that huge book, I said to everybody, never again, not written everything I know about piano playing. I'm never writing anything again. And a few months later, Peter's Edition phoned me and said, we'd like you to write some more books. I said, no, can't. Haven't got anything else to write. And they suggested doing something for children. And at first I was very hesitant because I'd never written anything for children before. And I didn't know how to do it. And I thought, well, I'm not the right person to do this. We should have somebody who's, younger and, a different person. But then I kept remembering that in my pedagogy classes, I've been saying for years, somebody needs to make some changes in the way piano is taught at the early stages. How we teach the technique, how we teach the musicianship, how we shouldn't be teaching technique separate from musicianship. And I'd been saying this to my students, and they'd say, which books do you recommend and what technique? And I'd say, well, I'm always a little bit hesitant because I feel we haven't got quite the right materials and the right resources yet. And I thought, oh my goodness, if I've been saying this for 20 years, then maybe I better have a go.
Right. You've just given yourself your own challenge.
I did,
right?
Yes, I did. Yes. Yeah.
Oh, that's lovely.
So it was a very new experience for me. It's very much a collaborative effort. And I've had loads. I have what I call the Roskell Academy, which is a very loose community of teachers who are and pianists who are using my method. Maybe they've read The Complete Pianist. They've had some lessons with me. They've done some of my courses. So we share ideas a lot, and we people share videos, and it's a community. And so they've been wonderfully helpful. I'd send drafts out to them, and they'd come back with lots of feedback. And then I had a wonderful composer called Aaron Burrows. And again, that was chance. He'd been on one of my courses. It was an online course during lockdown. And I'd seen that he was really engaged and really interested. And just at the time when I was starting to write the books and starting to write the pieces and feeling very dissatisfied with the pieces that were in the books, he said, I've just been writing some little pieces that are based on the techniques that you've been talking about, and I wonder if you'd like to see them. And I saw them, and I thought, oh, this is just what we were looking for, because he absolutely understood the principles of healthy piano technique and what I was aiming for, and yet he was using lots of varied styles and different types of technique. So he was able to write. Oh my goodness! I mean, the challenges I set him were horrible. I'd say, we can only use a broken chord, and they're only doing root position broken chords, and we have to do equal in right hand and left hand, and I don't want it just around middle C, I want it around here, and they only know these notes so far, and he'd come out with a beautiful piece.
Oh, that's amazing!
It was extraordinary. Yeah.
That's a really unique creative process.
Yeah.
With such constraints.
Yes. Yeah. So it became quite a collaborative process, and so we wrote 3, and now they've asked me to write 2 more. So I'm in the middle of writing those at the moment.
That's excellent. Now, one of the things that I've observed in those books is that they're very child-friendly, with fun little images and movements and graphics. What led you to that kind of approach?
All right. Well, as I was saying, when I injured my hand and I was working out what worked well, how do we use our body at the piano to create the sounds we want to create? That's what we ultimately are doing as pianists, isn't it? And when I was teaching my students, at first I'd start to say, well, do this with your wrist and do this with your hand arch and don't forget your elbow. And first, it takes a long time, and secondly, they look at you and they struggle, right? So what I found each time was eventually I'd say, well, if we were doing that movement in our everyday life, or if I just do that movement in the air, what image does it create for me? And as soon as I used images, then you don't need to even mention the wrist or the elbow or the shoulder or any part of the body. You just say, do this, you know. So for in the children's books, for this movement, which is the beginning of learning how to just do using arm weight, I never use the word arm weight in the books, but I talk about a trumpeting elephant, so they get this movement, and I talk about parachuting down, so they're just using gravity and landing on their hand, landing on the keys. So, and there's there's some imagery which all the teachers really seem to love, where the hand at rest, so it's on resting on the back of its hand, on your hand, we call it sleepy spider. And then when you turn it over, it's called wide awake spider. So that is your good hand position. But you're not saying, now make your hand fingers curled and do this. The teacher just says,
sleepy spider.
Or wide awake spider. And then we have two others. So that's squashed spider. With the broken hand bridge. That horrible position that we all see. Yep. And there's another one. Oh, and there's a springy spider, which is just actually really just got a lovely bounce. And then we have one called scary spider, which is where you've got
the wrist is way up high. Oh my goodness.
And teachers love this because, funnily enough, I thought that kids would be a bit scared of the image of a spider, but because they're amusing images.
Oh, they're so cute.
Yeah, they're cute.
so cute.
They think it's funny. And so a teacher, rather than saying, oh no, come on, get your good hand position and look at your hands all gone to squash, they just say, look at your squash spider. And the pupil laughs and they just remember. Right. And so it's a quick way, it's a very, very quick way of reminding a student without sort of feeling that you're nagging them. You know, it's giving them good technique and reminding them, but it's in a light-hearted way. And that's what I feel that we've got to do with kids, haven't we?
Yes. Yeah, nobody likes to be reprimanded over and
over. No.
Yeah.
So what I was trying to do, I mean, in both Complete Pianist and in the Essential Piano Technique, is start with, well, what is the most natural movement that we as human beings do? So it might be a big up and down movement. It might be a big sideways movement. We're just reaching out for something. So we start with just using these movements with the kids. We're doing them, they could be standing in the middle of the lesson. It gives them a bit of change of scene. It makes them stand up. It revitalizes them in the middle of the lesson. So they do a big movement away from the piano and maybe with a rhyme, and we've got an image and so on. And then they do that small movement in a much smaller version on a very simple exercise at the piano. But then I just couldn't stop there, because to me, there's absolutely no point in teaching technique unless you see a purpose for it. It's got a musical purpose. So then what we've done with each of the techniques is to put it into practice in a little musical example.
In a musical context, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So it's integrated the physical movements, the physicality of playing the piano, which we call the technique, with its musical purpose, so that when they come to play a piece that's using that technique, they think, oh, that's easy, because I've studied the technique in advance. So they're not overloaded and overwhelmed by any new techniques they come across.
So, as a pedagogue, one of the things I think about instantly is, well, how did you figure out the sequence? Was that a challenging process to figure out, how to get through this material across 3 volumes? So they're going to be 5?
It's going to be 5 volumes, yeah. This was a huge challenge for me. And if you saw the number of drafts of each book, every one of them was moving chapters around, putting things to try and get the right progression. Yeah. Because, if we're just thinking about the real beginning stages, what are we trying to achieve? We're trying to achieve a beautiful sound. We're trying to have develop a good hand shape. We're trying to keep the freedom of movement around the keyboard, so they've got flexibility of the joints. And we're trying to give them just an inspiring sort of introduction to the piano. So I'm very much against starting on middle C. With both thumbs on middle C. It really pulls the elbows in, it pulls the shoulders in. So I didn't want to do that. I also find that if you start immediately with legato playing, little hands, they find that really hard.
They
just
tense up
putting their
and-
fourth
yeah.
finger down, the other fingers tense up,
Yep.
really challenge. And so I'm following what a lot of other very good modern method books do, which is really starting with one finger at a time, starting with detached playing, maybe with the thumb behind the finger so that they've got the support. And so we're doing it in a step-by-step way, which by the end of the first book, they really should have a very natural hand shape. Not necessarily because anything we've done in the book, but because what we haven't done. We haven't forced things too early.
Yeah.
And I do find, for instance, things like chords are often introduced too early. Now, I mean, trying to play 1, 3, and 5 and leave out 2 and 4.
Oh, that's
we
very
all know
difficult.
that what happens, that, the hand arch dips down,
The
the
wrist
2 and 4, the wrist tightens up, 2 and 4 stick up, and so on. So the order in the books is actually slightly surprising to a lot of people. I bring hands together playing quite later, and chords I put quite a lot later than some other books. But that's for the real. It has a real purpose.
Yeah.
I felt strongly about that, and also, don't forget we've got a lot of younger children learning the piano, and some, age 7 or 8, they're doing quite advanced repertoire, and they've got tiny, tiny hands. So we have to really be aware of that.
Yeah.
And so, for instance, a 1 octave arpeggio is actually a big stretch if you're going to do it legato.
Absolutely.
For a tiny hand,
Is,
that fourth between 3 and 5th finger is big. So I haven't introduced that in the first 3 books, the arpeggios. I only bring it into this 4th book that I'm writing now. And even then I'm saying, well, da da dee da 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 da.
Oh,
and then
you're doing a 6th.
And then if your hand is big enough, yes, you can play the full octave. So we've got to really be aware of their small hands, because I don't believe it's correct to say, well, the more you do stretching exercises, the more you try and stretch your hand out, the bigger it's going to get. Yeah. It's not going to get any bigger. Hand doesn't grow.
Yeah, no,
I've
heard you talk about, I think the phrase you used was duty of care.
Yes.
And that comes into my mind hearing you speak about this.
Yeah. Right? I feel as teachers, what I've been talking about really already, we have a responsibility to look after our students physically, and also to nurture them as artists. Now, and to instill a love of music, and love of art, and the higher things in life, really, the things that we really live for, as musicians. And we can't always get that right. And there are things that every teacher will do wrong and regret, and look back and think, oops, I really got it wrong in that lesson or whatever. But I think if that's what we set ourselves as our challenge, then we'll get somewhere along that route, And especially if you're a young teacher, you're not going to get everything right. And, maybe a student will be practicing in a very unwise way, and they might hurt their hand. Maybe it's something you couldn't prevent. You just didn't have the knowledge. You didn't have the experience. So in that case, you ask somebody who does have the experience for the extra support, or you find it out online or wherever you go. Yeah. And then you come back and you'll probably, will have learned from that experience, and you'll be an even better teacher in the future from it. So we learn from our mistakes, don't we?
We
All
do.
of us.
And it's one of those things that I'm so grateful we have such a community in our field of people and experts and other teachers. And actually that brings me to a question I wanted to ask about EPTA, the European Piano Teachers Association. So I would love to know more about that community and what that's like in Europe and the UK.
Well, EPTA is the European Piano Teachers Association. It was set up by Carola Grindia, I don't know, more than 50 years ago. And there are branches in nearly every country in Europe. and also actually in other countries. So we've got China associates, we've got some in South America, we've got Israel, we've got and so on.
Wonderful.
We've got lots of different countries. And UK is actually the biggest country branch, and this is where it was set up. And I've been a member of EPTA for most of my life. It is our professional piano teachers organisation. It's a real community. Just at the end of last year, they asked me to be chair.
That's
so
wonderful.
Chair is what other people call president. It's the sort of, it's the sort of... and again, my immediate reaction was, oh, no, I haven't got time for it. And I said, no, I'm sorry, I'm much too busy and I got books to write and things. But you know what changed my mind?
I want to know.
Of course, we'd all been through the pandemic.
We had.
And we'd felt the loss of community.
Severely.
Yeah. And it's, I was doing a lot of things online and I was continuing all my work really, but there's nothing the same as being in the same room as somebody is there. And then I came on the NCKP conference last July.
Excellent, yes.
And I loved it. And I thought, such a positive experience, so inspiring, not only to me, but I think everybody felt it. And I think it was the first we'd had since the pandemic, wasn't it?
Yeah.
The first in-person real big gathering.
Indeed.
Yeah. And I came away buzzing and full of enthusiasm. I thought, there's lots that I can take back to EPTA here and into practice. And then we also had a national conference in London in July, which was much smaller. It was a fairly small one, first one since the pandemic. And it was just such a joy to be back with people again and sharing things and learning from each other. And so I thought, I just want to be a part of that. And I'm not really the sort of person who tends to embrace a leadership role. I tend to like to just get on with my own work and work with my students and not get involved in admin, which really I find very tedious. But again, I thought, well, I think as an older musician, we have a responsibility to take on leadership roles in a way that brings people together, creates a stronger sense of community, and starts to empower the younger ones.
Absolutely.
So again, I did a little bit of deep thinking and decided I'd take on the role.
Yeah.
And I'm very glad I did. People were saying to me, well, what do you want to change? And one of the things was actually greater collaboration with other organizations. So it's been great to meet people from Francis Clark Centre, from MTNA, NCKP, while I'm here. Just exchanging views, helping each other out, supporting each other, sharing resources, means that we all become stronger. We're all more able to support our teachers, and then the teachers are more able to support their students, and so the whole, it benefits society as a whole. So the greater collaboration was a big thing for me. And the thing I've been really talking to a lot of people about here also is that you call it DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. We call it EDI, so it's the same thing. And I feel you're a few years ahead of us in that. So I really wanted to see how you were implementing that in this country and in this organization. I've had some really interesting discussions on that, things I'm going to take home to the UK. And just, I want to really make sure that EPTA is a very, very welcoming organization for all teachers of all kinds, teaching all different approaches, different types of genre of music, all shapes and sizes, So that's another thing I really, really want to just keep looking at and keep diving into, and making sure that we're really fulfilling our responsibilities as a professional organization.
I really appreciate what you're talking about in terms of, really ensuring the future of the profession and empowering the young professionals in our midst. And then also this idea of collaboration across borders and oceans. And, because I was, thinking back to what we were saying about video and how that's really changed today. And I think something else that's really changing is this idea of, a video made in England can be as readily available and instantly as one made over here in the US. There really is this just immediate ability to collaborate.
Yeah. And I think what's so important about organizations like ours is that there's so much material out there, and you see videos where people say, "Oh, learn the piano in 3 weeks," and it's difficult for somebody just wanting to start to learn. Where do you start? And what the professional organizations do, they're putting their stamp on excellence, aren't they? And really making sure that people know where to go, that if we have a registered teacher, that they know they can trust that teacher. And I think that's very important at the moment when there is so much information out there. So where do you go and where do you start?
Yeah, no, that really is a challenge of today.
Yeah.
It's sometimes what I call the grocery store problem, where you look at the shelf and there's 20 kinds of black olives and you go, well, I don't know which one to pick.
And they all seem the same to us, because we're not an expert on olives.
Exactly, precisely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're running short on time. So let's move to a couple of our final questions today. So how do you believe music will shape our future?
Oh, that's a really tricky question. I wish I knew. I wish I knew. I think, we have challenges. We have less funding for music in England at the moment. Funding's been reduced. How is it going to be really positive? We've got AI, the questions of all sorts of questions that people are worried about. And I think if we let that dominate our thinking, we could end up young ones could give up. So I think they have to really create their own small world in which they are doing good. And I think none of us, we're not politicians. We can't stop wars. We can't change the world. We can't change climate change. There's a lot of things that people are very worried about. But in our small environment, we can make a huge difference. And I love it. I see sometimes on social media, somebody puts up a letter that's been sent to them. A teacher's put up a letter from a teacher one of their students, 20 years on, says, "Do you realize what a difference you made to my life?"
Yeah, that's lovely.
And I think we as teachers are making a difference to the world. And often we have no idea that we're doing that. Sometimes it's frustrating, sometimes it's difficult, sometimes we despair. Oh my God, am I getting anywhere with that student?
Right.
But I think in our own small way, we can make a huge difference. And I think we've got to keep holding on to that. And I think, and that has to be acknowledged as something that's just as important as any other change that people are making. Because we are affecting people's inner lives and giving them art and joy and a love of music, which, even if they only have 2 years of piano lessons, that love of music hopefully will last them the rest of their lives.
Their lives, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I am hopeful that
you are hopeful.
that there are huge things that we can do. I do think we've got to change our way of teaching because children have changed the way they want to learn. That's what I was trying to do with the essential piano technique to make it much more fun, actually. I think we have to go with the way the world is changing. Maybe use more technology, and that's not my thing. I'm hopeless with technology. But to be much more aware of how children want to learn. So that we really learn how to engage them. But I think we've got to really pat ourselves on the back and say, we did good work. Yeah.
So how does piano continue to inspire you today?
I couldn't imagine my life without the piano. I'm very, very busy. I work very, very hard. And I'm at the age where a lot of my friends are retiring and I can't even envisage doing that. Because I just, we talk about a portfolio career. It's not something I chose, but I just do a lot of different things. And I love doing all of those. So, 1 minute I'm practicing the piano, then I'm teaching, and then I'm writing something in a book. And then I'm talking with other teachers or doing presentations, sometimes, like with you across the world, in Oklahoma. And I love doing all of those things. So I think many people in the world have jobs that they don't enjoy doing. And that's where we are very privileged to have a job that we believe in, that we see the importance of, and that we enjoy it, and we're communicating with people. It's different every day. It's a huge joy to and a privilege to have the job that we have, and we should really make sure that the profession is valued for what it does, and that's what I feel in what I'm trying to do, is to make sure that our work is acknowledged in the way that it should be. So I've got years to go yet, I think. No, I just love what I'm doing.
It's good news to me. Yes, that's wonderful. Well, it's been a delight to talk with you today. Thank you for sharing so freely.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah.
The Frances Clark Center is a not-for-profit educational organization that serves the advancement of piano teaching, learning, and performing. Divisions include Piano Magazine, Piano Inspires Kids, Journal for Piano Research, National Conference on Keyboard Pedagogy, the New School for Music Study, Piano Education Press, International Online Teacher Education, and Piano Inspires Online Community Hub. Please visit us at pianoinspires.com to learn more about our impactful work and inspiring community.